relations, marketing, and social media and healthcare requires making the right moves at the right time. Welcome to the Overrated and Underused show. Here's your hosts, experienced marketers Jennings and Tom Testa, with special guest Adrian Stoner. Overrated and underused. The Overrated and Underused show.
Welcome to another episode of Overrated and Underused. We're your hosts in quarantine, Jennings and Tom Testa. Jen, it's unfortunate that, it's a little bit of slight of a joke there with mentioning quarantine, but the fact of the matter is, since our last episode, really not a lot has changed.
Right. Yeah, we are, last episode, we really focused on how COVID-19 is impacting conferences versus in-person events that are being canceled left and right, even for later in this year, how a lot of associations and organizations are looking to virtual events to still help bring the education to their audiences. So that's what we focused on last episode. We're recording this mid-April. So like you said, not a lot has changed. We're still in the midst of dealing with the pandemic and everyone kind of adjusting to, the new situation and their new normal. We have a topic this month that also seems pretty timely to what a lot of organizations are having to do with choices around how they move forward with PR and marketing.
Last month, like you said, we talked a lot about those in-person versus virtual events, and a lot of organizations, customers themselves, clients themselves, providers, they're all trying to figure out still how the new normal is going to work, right? So we've seen some folks taking on the virtual event side. Folks like HIMSS are moving a lot of the presentations. They're trying to bring those online for virtual HIMSS. But again, a month later, I think people are still trying to navigate these new waters and see what's going to work effectively for their content, for their programming.
Yeah, for this month's topic, we're kind of exploring inaction versus act. And if you don't know what that means, then you're not alone, because we didn't either when we started talking about it.
And we still don't, I don't think. All I have to say about inaction, Jennifer, is there are risks and costs to action, but there are far less than the long-range risks of comfortable inaction. I said that,
You should trademark that.
You know who stole that?
It sounds like some wise words.
Yeah, and you know who stole that from me? John Fitzgerald Kennedy, one of our greatest presidents.
He was definitely the cutest. I don't care what the newspapers say about me, as long as they spell my name right.
You know who said that?
Paris Hilton.
I think you're right. But I think you're right. But I think P.T. Barnum stole it from her. But yes, it was Paris Hilton. She did say it. Speaking of Tiger King, right?
Oh, goodness.
Right? Is he the modern day P.T. Barnum?
On a serious note, what do we really mean when we're talking about inaction?
Tell us, Jen. Well, the word inaction, right? It sounds very obvious. It sounds like, you're just sitting on your hands. You're doing nothing about it, right?
Yeah, we're not doing anything. We're sitting around watching Tiger King.
That's it, right? So what else is there to do?
Yeah, it seems pretty obvious that inaction is overrated.
Overrated.
Doing nothing, who would think that's a good idea? All too often, that really is the course that some companies take. Unintentionally, they'll delay projects, delay things for all sorts of reasons, waiting for the right messaging, the perfect opportunity, everything to kind of fall into place exactly as it should be. And sometimes that's just not the right course that should be taken.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think some people just overthink things a lot, whether it's coming up with messaging, the precise wording, and that in turn can definitely delay processes. They want messaging to be just right. For a lot of communication professionals, inactivity can actually be the result of wanting to make sure that message is perfect. It's great to have a fine-tuned message, but sometimes thinking, did I say that right? And you have to clear it through potentially a lot of red tape to try and get that message out there. And I think the result is, maybe now's not the best time to say it.
There's definitely something to be said for perfecting your messaging or making sure that it really hits the right tone or the right, what's your point that you're trying to get across. So I think there's that, but there is, and I don't know what the line is, but there is a definite line, too much versus the right amount of, if you're having round after round after round of messaging and then you still aren't sure and you just kind of sit on it and think, let's have a collective voice of 50 people review this, then that's a bit much. But certainly you want to have the right people looking at, or, kind of delegating responsibility to people that you trust within your organization to make those decisions.
See, I'm going to come from an angle of sometimes I think inactivity can, although we're, trying to say it's overrated, I think there's a time when inactivity is actually not a bad thing. And I think,
what is that?
Well, I'm going to tell you, Jen. That's when, I think when sometimes you're rushing to market with a message. So again, you can check out on one of our other episodes of how we talk about press releases versus that are overrated, actually. But sometimes people want to rush to market with a press release, for example, and they may not have a customer yet. They may not have even the product necessarily fine-tuned and complete. But sometimes people do want to rush to market with that message. And I think in that case, without your strategy complete, and that's where I say your message.
That's where you can lose momentum and having to backtrack. You're putting out these messages and trying to build this brand for something. And then if you're constantly changing your messaging, even outside of messaging, I think there's plenty of scenarios where companies, whether intentional or not, are inactive, and their delay or their inactivity is really holding back their PR and marketing efforts. And they may not even realize it, but skipping press or analyst interviews because the perfect spokesperson isn't available, or, they're not readily available within, a reasonable time frame for, we're working on tight deadlines for media relations opportunities. I mean, I think that's a big one, not posting specific content on their websites for the fear that competitors might steal it. Certainly, we've run across that in our time.
You know who's not inactive? Adrienne Stoner. She's going to get on. She's going to join us in a couple minutes, and she's going to kick it with some Inbox with Adrienne. Let's talk about Action, which is, by the way, Jennifer, very underused.
Underused.
Really, Tom? Really? Is it though? We talked about these scenarios that can hold back your PR and your marketing efforts, unintentionally. I mean, you may not think it, but, when there's a story opportunity and you're like, well, I'm not sure if that's the right one for us. Maybe let's wait it out. And, then your competitor's covered. It's a missed opportunity. So not really jumping on, what's in front of you. And, certainly if it's a topic that's completely out of left field and you have no insights on, then that's one thing. And hopefully your PR agency wouldn't even bring it to you. But there's a lot of cases where you can find an angle in something, in a topic that may not be directly promoting your company or your software or what services you have to offer, but that you're sharing insights from your perspective, a different perspective to that topic. So really just trying to think outside of the box and expand those ideas is beneficial to companies and really getting the most out of their media relations. Not everything's going to be perfect. Not everything is going to be an amazing top tier publication. This is the coverage we've been dying to get for a year. But, a lot of the goal of your PR and marketing and social media efforts is to expand your reach, bring in a new audience of people that know about your company. So thinking outside the box to these different opportunities that may not be in a direct mainstream to your business is, I think very beneficial and something that companies should really consider.
What if a company said yes and took action for every new advertising and award opportunity that hit their inbox? There's so many that they're being flooded with daily, right?
Well, then that's stupid.
Well, it might be silly, yes, but the company would be, more important, the company would be broke in a month. But that's something I do know for a fact. So there needs to be some strategy to it. You can't just say, well, if it's an opportunity, I'm just going to, apply for this award opportunity or the speaking opportunity. There needs to be strategy because, again, it all has to tie into your core messaging, your mission, not just to be a pretty face out there.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, even outside of the monetary value of things or these advertising opportunities that you have to pay for and budget for. So those are ones that are definitely, considered more. But even just the non-paid opportunities, media relations opportunities, speaking submissions, those type of things, they take resources. They take your staff, your agency, time, effort to put those together. So yeah, there definitely has to be some strategy to it in that it should align with your company company, but doesn't necessarily have to flow directly down one specific path and only focus on, oh, well, we only want to talk about this topic. We only want to focus on this publication. And there's a lot of missed opportunity in some of these second tier or third tier publications.
If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Overrated and Underused on Healthcare Now Radio. Today's episode is Inaction versus Action. Jen, I'd like to take this action versus inaction conversation in a different direction for a second. We've spent the past few minutes talking about the strategic decisions healthcare marketers make during times where it's pretty much business as usual. But unfortunately, as you know, things aren't quote unquote normal. And because of that, we're all making important communication decisions smack in the middle of a global pandemic. So there's a new normal for us, unfortunately, for us marketers, for our clients customers, who in many cases, the customers of our clients, they're the general public who are of course are getting greatly impacted by this as well. So the fact that much of what we're doing on a day-to-day basis is taking place in the setting of a global pandemic makes people, I think, take pause for a second. So for example, much of the news focus, and rightly so, is all on COVID-19 all day, no matter whether you're reading mainstream media, healthcare trade publications, blogs, or even corporate newsletters, Jen. It's all about COVID-19 all day.
Definitely, if you're looking for information about COVID-19, it's everywhere. It's almost overwhelming at some points, but that's what we're all focusing on these days, really so understandable new normal for us.
Right. It's sad to say, but it's in all our news feeds. It's when we click on to open up a new search engine. It's all about, news all about COVID-19. And so, like you said, and we've said before, this is unfortunately the new normal right now. So what does that mean, right? So I think what a lot of marketers are asking themselves, I know we are too, even for our own clients, is this the perfect time to announce that new product launch, right?
Right.
Or what about that new customer win? Because yes, there's no doubt that our clients would be ecstatic about the fact that a hospital client of theirs or a physician's practice will be integrating their EMR or their telehealth platform. But is now the best time to announce that?
Yeah, I think that's something that we're all debating. I think it's, each organization is debating. Everyone's situation is a little different too.
Right.
And that, some businesses and companies are business as usual, or, some are busier than ever for various reasons, and then there's some that just are taking a huge hit financially. Their employees are hurting. Like, it's just, there's different scenarios all across the board. So you certainly want to be mindful and I like to take the approach of not being boastful
or opportunistic sometimes.
Right.
It's pretty negative. it's a negative word, but still it's what it is.
Right.
To your point, Jen, about, how some of these, obviously these practices, these organizations, these healthcare organizations, they still are operational. And so maybe back to that point of taking action when it is something like announcing a new telehealth platform, because those companies now, it's a new service offering potentially during this time of a pandemic. So it's not really just kind of taking advantage of the news cycle, but saying, hey, we're off, now our practice is now integrated this new telehealth platform. We're going to be able to triage more patients, help bend the curve, et cetera. So I think in that case, not, sitting on your hands isn't a good thing versus maybe a general product announcement or customer announcement. But I think in the end, what I would say is that, as marketers, as publicists, no matter what, pandemic or not, we want the best shot at getting as many eyeballs as possible on the news we're about to release, right? And like we said, that's important no matter the circumstances. So, you'll often hear us talk about, if not in the show, but even to our clients, about why releasing news on a Friday isn't maybe the best strategy, or around certain holidays, or even during the summer months in some cases where readership can be low. So again, there's things like a major global pandemic impacting the news cycle, but then there's also just in ordinary times, there's also times where you don't want to release news because not strategically the best time to get the most eyeballs on it.
Right. And I think certainly now when it comes to marketing strategies, it's really just companies reevaluating and revisiting everything that they're doing and making a decision whether this is still the best strategy, the best tone, the best wording. Is the information we're putting out there beneficial to practices now? Is that what they're going to care about? Are they, obviously telehealth is huge. So, that industry is kind of blowing up right now because there's a great need for it. So something like that, if there's obviously getting that information out to practices so that they can use it as is vital, but are they thinking about transitioning their medical records? Like, are they thinking about other service lines, which are very important, but is that top of mind to them right now? So if there's a company trying to really just blast and sell something that maybe is obviously a great product, but probably not the top list of concerns for medical practices or hospitals when they're dealing with a crisis like that. So I think those are the thoughts, and you have to kind of and at any point, you really have to put yourself in the perspective of the customer and what their concerns and what their needs are and how you can meet those.
No, you're absolutely right, Jen. Okay, so we've had our COVID conversation. It's May, and sadly, I think even when we're next month when during our next show, it's going to be the setting as well. Probably even July. Who knows, unfortunately. But let's get back to what we were talking about before. Under ordinary circumstances, overthinking your communication strategy to the point where you may miss an opportunity is definitely overrated. I think we can agree on that. It's probably the road most traveled, sadly, but, versus putting a communication plan into action. But as we said earlier, not everything will be perfect, although we know our bosses certainly hold us to those standards. But if what you're launching is read or passed along, it has done the job, no matter the circumstances. So it's time for the segment we call Clinician's Corner.
Clinician's Corner.
And this is where we're really directing our insights and our advice towards those working at hospitals and health systems. When it comes down to inaction versus action, for larger healthcare providers like hospitals and health systems, the same inaction versus action debate we just had rings true. They know they need to promote to the regional community, but they're often constrained by legal restrictions and communication team bottlenecks.
We see this a lot when we work with them on national media places. A lot of hoops that they have to jump through, and so that things can happen. So it's usually, your specific contact isn't really the one that has to sign off on a lot of things.
It's a real struggle. So that's why we say the best defense for inaction would be preparation, Jen. Those are my pearls here for the hospitals and health system, is just preparation, right? Understand the review timetables you're dealing with and stay on top of your communication teams to keep things moving forward. I think that's crucial.
Right. Yeah, I think everybody's goal is to promote the great work that they're doing and what they're offering to the community, and just put their hospital, health system practice in a positive light. So obviously, there's always going to be things that come up that, delay projects or whatnot, but trying to really understand your internal processes and how to streamline them can definitely help in the long run.
Right. And so we talk a little bit about how hospitals and health systems, but, for smaller medical practices of all specialties, really, the bigger challenge, I think, is that they often don't do anything at all.
Oh, no.
Right?
Yeah. Big mistake.
Huge mistake, right? Because marketing your practice can be it can be a foreign concept to a lot of these folks at smaller medical practices. So they really, in the end, they choose to do nothing. But like you said, that's a huge mistake.
Well, yeah, I think it's like the resources and the time investment, and they're pulled in a lot of different directions. So, it's definitely certainly a different environment than when you're a larger organization like a health system.
Right. And, unlike hospitals and health systems who have, more staff, like you just said, dedicated to marketing efforts, these smaller practices, they don't have the budgets. They don't have the budget, especially not dedicated to PR and marketing, that's for sure. Right. They can't hire an agency like Anderson Interactive, most likely.
They could. We're here for them.
We are here for them, but most likely they're and that's why we don't target ourselves as an agency. We're not out there trying to get in front of small practices, right? Because we know that their budgets are focused on, really just keeping the practice afloat for a lot of these smaller practices, and not really targeting, gearing towards marketing.
I don't know. My pediatrician is making a killing off my doctor visits with my toddler.
What are you getting, like free giveaways or stuff? Like where's that money going to?
I don't know. No.
I mean, you go in and they're like, oh, hey, thanks for the visit, Jennifer. Oh, Bridget, you're so cute. Not a lollipop. Here's an iPad.
I wish that were the case. It should be, but.
Oh man. So, okay. So with the exception of Jennifer's local pediatrician, most of these folks, they just don't have the large PR budgets or the staff dedicated to it. And in fact, we'd be happy to share our insights directly with you and give you a few ideas on ways in which you can promote your medical practice without spending. And although I just said that, many of these small medical practices aren't our clients per se, if you're listening out there, we'd be happy to share our insights directly with you and give you a few ideas on ways in which you can promote your medical practice without spending a dime. So please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. If you're working at a small medical practice, we are here. We're glad to give you some insight.
Definitely. We're happy to talk with anyone about strategies for their organizations and practices. Certainly a different market, especially, now I think this is top of mind for everybody in that, they're dealing with a lot of challenges and really navigating the messaging how much should we promote versus, do we kind of wait it out? This is the major focus of everybody. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things in play. So yeah, definitely you can tweet us, email us, hello@andersoni.com. Happy to respond and help.
Inbox with Adrian.
Welcome back to another episode of Inbox with Adrian. No one slid into my DMs again or sent me an email, but I don't even have to think about which question we should talk about here. It's one we've been asked half a dozen times over the past 2 weeks. What should we do about marketing and promotion during a pandemic? Should we stop altogether? Is it tone deaf to continue marketing during a time like this? Hell, should we even be doing this radio show right now? What's the answer?
Hey, are you trying to cut my radio show off there?
Maybe so. Is it tone deaf to do that?
Bless your heart.
Maybe this is where action versus inaction comes into play. I really think this all depends on your brand. This is when it's time for you to regroup and decide, where does your brand stand with this?
There's a lot of companies that have software and products that will be truly beneficial to hospitals and health systems during this time.
I think now is the time to find the balance within your brand. You want to look at all aspects of things and decide, is there a way that we can help? Do we have tools that other people can use to help benefit them during a time like this? Do we have information that we can put out to be useful to people? You also want to look at doing things like just making uplifting posts. You don't want to do too many things you don't want to do anything that seems self-serving. Right now, everybody is just digging in and trying to help, and that's what you need to be highlighting right now. You also want to evaluate your images and your language. You want to be sure that you aren't posting images that have a large crowd of people. That may seem insensitive to some. You also want to refrain from language that has to do with large groups of people, mass interactions, and things to that nature. Everyone is going virtual now. We're doing Zooms. That's how people are doing meetings. So I think it's just very important to adhere to your new normal and be a part of that and try to help in any way possible.
I think that's great, Adrian. I think definitely we certainly don't want companies to be tone deaf to the situation that's going on. Obviously, like pre-planned campaigns and things have to be reevaluated, really just understanding the audience that they're reaching out to.
Yes, I think the main thing to take away from this is you don't want to capitalize on a crisis.
Definitely not. No.
You don't want to be an alarmist.
Nobody recommends that.
Right, yeah. You don't want to be an alarmist. You don't want to be bragging. You want to watch your tone. And you just really want to make sure that you can help, because that's all anyone is trying to do right now.
I've been super encouraged by a lot of organizations, a lot of companies that are offering their products and their services that help with coronavirus, different aspects of it for free or for discounted rates. I mean, I think this is something that we're dealing with, on such a widespread level that, it's consuming everybody's focus, and those goodwill gestures by those companies hopefully will be, rewarded in the long run. Our next episode will be a social media explosion. Yeah, exploding all over, where we get down and dirty with the various platforms. LinkedIn versus Facebook, the Gram versus Twitter. Hell, we might even throw in a TikTok or something else.
This is a little known fact, but I was supposed to be a part of the entire show, and I got booted to only 5 minutes, so I'm absolutely thrilled.
Sorry, Adrian, you're out. Carol Baskin's in. All right, well, that's a wrap on this month's episode of Overrated and Underused. Thanks to our ONU groupies for listening in. As always, we are sponsored by Anderson Interactive and can be heard weekdays at 10 a.m., 6 p.m., 2 a.m. Eastern on Healthcare Now Radio. Email your inbox with Adrian questions to hello@andersoni, that's the letter I.com, or tweet us at Jen_Jennings, Tom_Testa, or Adrian_Stoner. And you can follow us with the hashtag #OverUnderRadio.
Thanks for listening to the Overrated and Underused show with your hosts, experienced marketers Jen Jennings and Tom Testa, and special guest, Adrian Stoner.